You see, during Jim Crow, during Jim Crow, the black family was together.
That's right.
During Jim Crow, more black people were not just conservative, because black people always have been conservative minded, but more black people voted conservatively. And then HEW, Lyndon Johnson, and then you go down that road, and now we are where we are. What's happened in America?
Ancestry was legally black and could not marry a white person. Jim Crow took place in two distinct forms: Jim Crow etiquette and Jim Crow laws, i.e., black codes. Jim Crow etiquette governed how African Americans should behave in white society, and sometimes the etiquette would vary from person to person. For instance, black males could not offer their hand to shake to a white male or any other part of their body to a white female. Black males couldn't even light the cigarette of a white female. Blacks and whites were not supposed to eat together, but if they did eat together, whites would be served first. A black couple was not allowed to show affection towards one another in public. Whites did not use courtesy titles of respect when referring to African Americans, like Mr. or Mrs. or ma'am. Instead, blacks were referred to by their first name. But blacks absolutely had to use courtesy titles when referring to whites and could not use their first name. This informality of whites using the first names instead of courtesy titles caused many African Americans to start using initials for their first name. Jim
And I mean, unbelievable. The coonery, the buffoonery, the shucking, the jiving, the buck dancing, dudes looking for their butter biscuits, hoping the chitlins fall off the table at the master's house. It's too much of that going on. And from folks, I mean, yeah, Byron Donalds, Jim Crow was better for the black families, essentially, he says. He's married to a white woman, and just looking at her back then in Jim Crow, um, he would have been lynched. And as Greer points out, the Tulsa riot is what happened to the black family. And then it's all the more Emmett Till is what happened. Right, right. It's like, do you know Emmett Till? Mike B says, first Tim Scott, now Byron Donalds. These bro servatives, I tell you, bro servatives, I like that. Because you never hear these, listen, whatever your politics are is your politics. Whatever your politics is your politics. But you never hear so-called black conservatives stand up or see them stand up and hear them say anything when you get other so-called black conservatives so out of pocket, so lost in the sauce, like Byron Donalds, who would do the world a favor if he just ate a gun. And then I was talking to Gray yesterday about this. We were talking a lot about this. He got 50 Cent. It's so funny because I think yesterday on the show I even gave him some props. But you got 50 Cent going up. He totally embarrassed Ben Crump yesterday. Totally embarrassed him. Ben Crump will never publicly admit that, I'm sure. But 50 Cent totally embarrassed Ben Crump, totally embarrassed himself, totally embarrassed everything that he's supposed to stand for. Now, granted, the man did support Donald Trump in 2020. 50 Cent supported Donald Trump in 2020. And again, your politics are your politics. I'm not, whatever. But to go up to Capitol Hill, once again, you knew it was going to be a disaster. We talked about it yesterday, that why is he going up to Capitol Hill? Okay, he's a businessman. He's a Black businessman. He's a very successful Black businessman. But where are the Black economists and folks like that? We talked about that yesterday. But he goes up there, and he really was a spectacle, because they all, and it shows to show you these politicians, it's all about that photo op. And this is why Donald Trump is so popular with a small but certain fraction of Black folks, because those 1980s photo ops with all these Black celebrities, Mike Tyson, Michael Jackson, you name it, rappers. But we talking about this yesterday. I'm surprised. In fact, I'm shocked in this context that when we was growing up, and especially in the early 80s, hip hop, rap, those guys, those dudes, they were in the streets with the block parties and doing jams in the park. Out, we all, everybody living out. I went to the barber yesterday. Guy named Michael it's called Scissors and Scotch. So y'all know I had a drink at the barbershop. And he, along with myself and LL Cool J, went to Andrew Jackson High School. He was like, wow, I haven't met anybody. He graduated, Michael, a year after I did. And, we had a ball talking yesterday, paid him well, did my hair, whatever. But he said, you remember how, like, we would leave school, or sometimes just walking through the hallways, and you see LL, you see Run, you see Jay and DMC, and they come up they would pick LL up from school sometimes. LL used to have a lot of beef. And so they'd pick him up. Russell would come by from time to time. Other dudes, even the dudes from Long Island, something about Andrew Jackson, especially if there was a football game or a basketball game, particularly a basketball game, Coach Granby was extremely popular. Rakim, Eric B, all those dudes. But so what I'm saying is, we hung out with these guys. They were around the way. They would, they on the corner when they're not DJing, when they're not MCing, they drinking a 40-ounce Old Gold or whatever. And everybody kept it real. Never, and so in that context, 50 Cent from around the same way. In that context, I'm shocked to see these Black hip hop dudes like 50 Cent, like Ice Cube, go so strong for someone who is a flat out racist and has spawned so much hate.
I haven't.
But 50 Cent,
What do you think is the significance?
Thank you.
What do you see is the significance of African American men?
and I guess we got some audio.
I see them identifying with Trump
Why do you say that?
because they got RICO charges. I haven't.
What do you think is the significance?
Thank you.
And you see how Ben Crump tried to interrupt there, and you could feel, if you've been around Ben Crump, which we have a lot, you could feel the crushing, how crushed he might have been inside from those words, promoting that sick stereotype that Black folks identify with Trump because he has RICO charges, is what 50 Cent said. And then, as Yvette here says, the ignorance starts when 50 Cent refuses to follow Crump's lead and ignore the question. 50 Cent doesn't know enough to answer this question with the complexity it deserves, but he's too arrogant to move on. He's unaware of his limitations. He doesn't care. Here comes the train wreck. And that's where the question, What do you see as significant for African American men in this election? 50 Cent says, I see them identifying with Trump. The reporter says, why do you say that? And 50 Cent says, because they got RICO charges. That's just as bad as Sexy Red said, saying Trump gave us the stimmy, meaning the stimulus payment. Folks, when the pandemic hit, Trump allowed tens of thousands of people, perhaps, to die. Trump told you folks to drink some bleach. Trump did not want to sign that stimulus package, and he held it up. Go back and look it up. This is not conjecture. He held it up until Congress agreed that they would send paper checks out with Donald Trump's signature. Donald Trump did not give you the stimulus package. It was the Congressional Black Caucus-led House of Representatives that led that charge. And if you recall, you have folks like Sheila Jackson Lee and others saying that $1,200 should be $5,000 a month for at least a couple of years. So the black folks wanted to give you $5,000 a month for a couple of years. And Trump gave you one time $1,200, maybe twice, $1,200, about 6 months apart. Do the math. But I know many of you, Sexy Red, you can't count. I know you can't count. Somebody said Herschel Walker is sitting on $4 million from his campaign, his failed campaign. And I said, it's obviously why. He can't count. That ignorant dude don't know he got $4 million. He don't know the difference between 4 million and 4,000. But this buffoonery, the coonery, it's so annoying. It's so annoying. And then you got this, and we're gonna swing back to 50. We're gonna swing into that ignorant waste, as my mom would say, waste of space, called Byron Donalds. But we talked yesterday about Teray and albums, right? I'm not going here again, but what he said about cohesiveness, right? Well, here, check this out. We're gonna start like this. Wendell Pierce, you know the actor, famous actor, black, famous actor. He revealed, and he sat down with our girl Abby Phillips at CNN, that a couple of months ago, he was denied an application for an apartment in Harlem. Denied. Despite his rock solid, robust income from various films. Denied. Well, this is what he says. He says, for those of you who don't understand my righteous anger, I'm on 2 TV series, Elsbeth and Raising Kanan. He says, I'm filming Superman. He said, just 2 years ago, I finished the 4th season of Jack Ryan. Last year, I finished a run on Broadway in Death of a Salesman. He's running it down for you. This is my resume. Even with my proof of employment, bank statements, and real estate holdings, a white apartment owner denied my application to rent the apartment in Harlem, of all places, he says. Racism, he says, and bigots are real. There are those who will do anything to destroy life's journey for Black folks. When you deny our personal experiences, you are as vile and despicable. You know, I mean, this is the guy from The Wire. And in fact, I'm excited because he's going to play. I used to like Superman. He's going to play Perry White in James Gunn's new DC universe. But the thing about it was, this guy was like, I gave them like my bank statements. The landlord probably never seen, you know, somebody's bank statement as robust as that anyway. But as he said, this is an act of institutionalized racism, a stealth act of bigotry in the shadows. And Power 96 says, Wendell is from New Orleans. He does great work in his city. But again, pay attention, right? We talked about cohesiveness. Pay attention. In Louisiana, speaking of New Orleans, Power 96, Governor Jeff Landry signed Senate Bill 1, which allows any quote unquote law abiding citizen 18 years old or older to carry a concealed weapon without a license or permit. In Louisiana, Power 96, you can't, at 18, you can't buy cigarettes, you can't buy alcohol, but you can certainly buy a gun and conceal carry. They are arming folks. You see all these decisions from the Supreme Court, from the racist Supreme Court. You see they got their stepping fetches in tow with Byron Donalds and those other ones in blackface like Tim Scott. They are prepared and preparing, and they're getting ignorant folks like a 50 Cent, like an Ice Cube, like an unsexy Red. There's nothing sexy about her. I'm sorry. She doesn't even look like she's clean. Doesn't look like she bathes. I'm sorry. I have to say it. They say, my grandmother said, you lay down with dogs, you get fleas. How many guys running? Drake got fleas. How many guys out there running around with fleas? Listen, legislators also in Louisiana green lighted a bill that provides immunity from civil liability for someone who uses a concealed firearm to shoot a person in so-called self-defense. You would think law enforcement, unions, law enforcement and their unions would be upset. They're not. They're not. Because remember, we talked earlier this week about the movie The Six that everybody should see. Of those thousands of insurrectionists, many of them were law enforcement. Many of them. And it's not conjecture. Look it up. Those who've been tried, convicted, arrested, et cetera, they're finding military people, state police officers, etc. 27 states, including all that border Louisiana, allow people to carry a concealed weapon without a permit. 27 states that border that. I mean, come on. What do you think is going on? Stop sleeping. Stevie Wonder in Higher Ground says, stop sleeping. Danielle Pierre is 100% right. Arming folks with access to guns, but denying equitable resources to enable folks to thrive. One report said, and going back to police associations and police organizations who have offered their opinions on Louisiana's new laws, says they've even taken a neutral stand. Some have opposed it, but many have taken a neutral stand. If I'm in law enforcement, the last thing I want is more people, more guns on the street, particularly with 18-year-olds. And again, follow the cohesiveness of Let It Be Known today. In Kansas, a Supreme Court ruling last week issued in a lawsuit over a 2021 election law found that voting, y'all want to talk about voting? Voting is not a fundamental right listed in the state constitution's Bill of Rights. They will now have the ability without cause. You know how they say employment is at will? Like they can fire. If you're not a contracted employee, they can fire you without any excuse. Here they're saying that they can turn anybody away at the polls. So if they don't like who you're voting for, they can say, no, you can't vote. It's not, you don't really have the right to vote. That's the thing. This this is what has been happening. If you've been sleeping, this is what's been happening. Do you see what's going on here? They are yeah, like that said, you're living in fascism. But there is an all-out assault. And folks, you were warned. You were warned. Even when they took away, when they did the Dobbs decision, Roe v. Wade, you had Uncle Clarence, who is also married to a white woman, say that all these so-called rights are fair game, with the exception. He stopped. The only one exception he obviously mentioned. What did I just say? He's married to the MAGA Jeannie Thomas, with the exception of interracial marriage. But they were looking at that as well. Just 2 years ago, this Supreme Court was looking at interracial marriage. Don't believe me? Look it up. And so then you got Jim Crow Donalds, Django Unchained Donalds, looking up at saying stuff. He Massa Trump is probably what he says at Mar-a-Lago. Massa McConnell when he addresses him in the House in the on Capitol Hill. Massa Johnson when he addresses the speaker. I'm sure that's what happens behind closed doors. I'm sure. I'm positive. That discombobulated, useless Negro said that during Jim Crow, the black family was better. They were together. They were better. During Jim Crow, the black family was struggling not to get lynched. They were struggling to be able to breathe. They had a knee in their necks 24/7 during Jim Crow. They had a grown man or a grown black woman, upon seeing a white child, was to address that child as Mr. or Mrs. And that same white child was taught and carried out for the most part, addressing that black man as boy. And there was nothing he could do about it. That's what Byron Donalds pines for us to go back to. Imagine what his slave masters want. Make no mistake, he is a slave. And one of them proud Negro slaves. They have instituted policies that where they long before this, because again, when in any way saying that this is all because of Trump, it's not. It's not. He was just smart enough to understand that if I brought out these folks, if I encourage this, these I would get. Because y'all, America has changed. America is for the better since the civil rights. No, it never got better. not in their thinking, not in their plotting. Because again, we talked about the Dobbs decision, Roe v. Wade. Remember, folks, that decision came down 2 years ago now, right? 2022. They have been plotting that since 1973. They don't sleep. You see what's going on. And again, not one so-called Black conservative has spoken up to put this dude or any of them in their place. Because he goes on to talk about, and it's, you know, the whole idea that women, there was a episode of Good Times, and you know, Florida was a housewife, and James was upset, and the thing was, the women only belonged in two places: the kitchen and the bedroom. The kitchen and the bedroom. I just remember that saying. And I think, daggone it, I think much more of my wife than that. Much more of that. I mean, she's great in both, but she's great in so many other things. And Byron Donalds went back to that women only have two places. So Byron Donalds can go look at Ketanji Brown Jackson and say, you're out of your league, you're out of your place being on the Supreme Court. You need to be in somebody's kitchen and somebody's bedroom. This is Byron Donalds. This is so-called Black conservative. This is so-called conservative, not Black conservative, but conservative. The relegate. So does that mean, because I'm allergic to blue collar work. I want y'all to know right now. So that means that we men should all be out in the fields or doing construction. Because I can't do it. I'm just not going to do it. But I mean, my wife will tell you everything we have to get done. The yard work, I'm on the phone calling somebody, hiring somebody to do it. That's me. I ain't gonna front. Don't laugh at me, Mr. Durrett. You know it's true. But it is incredible to see all this unfold, and then to see 50 Cent, Ice Cube. Like I said, particularly the East Coast guys. Forget Ice Cube. He's, that whole idea, that fake gangsterism got to his head. But again, growing up around these guys, like I said to Greer yesterday, the sad part now is none of them would surprise me now with this type of rhetoric. They have lost their way. They have gotten some fame. They've made some money. And they feel they're untouchable. And that they're going to do stuff. 50 Cent was posing for pictures. Call it Lauren Boebert. Now, 50 Cent obviously has had access and proximity and I'm sure relationships with some of the most sexiest, beautiful women there is. But to say, and he on his own social media, to post that picture of him and Lauren Boebert and say that she makes the White House look good and they flirting with each other. I'm like, oh man, it's like Tiger Woods when he cheated on his wife. That dude truly crawled into the sewer to find many of those women. I mean, it was pretty obvious. But 50 Cent went below the sewer for Lauren Boebert. As somebody on social media posted, she appeared after he said Beetlejuice 3 times. And if you know, you know. And then the misinformed, uninformed, certainly politically uneducated Negro, 50 Cent, says of Speaker MAGA Mike Johnson, and he's doing a great job creating all these jobs and stuff like that. There has not been one piece of legislation in 4 years that those folks, Mike Johnson, in fact, I believe, has not yet crafted and passed one single piece of legislation. The only thing that MAGA Mike has been doing is two things he's been doing. Going back on his word, his handshake agreements with the president, and being an obstructionist. That's it. That's it. And then this idea of, and Greer showed me this. I saw it this morning. She said, like I said, I don't know if she sent it last night or this morning, but in Philly, they opened up a Donald Trump for president office. And you had folks talk about the border and immigrant and Black folks that they picked to speak. Oh, we got to do something about these immigrants.
That's right.
Black issues are American issues. We hate what's happening at the border. We hate what's happening with this inflation. We hate energy prices. We don't like being unsafe. We don't like being on the verge of World War III. And the person that's going to come back and save this country from the brink is Donald John Trump.
Trump all the way.
A lot of issues with that. A lot of issues.
It's because of you great Americans and the people in this room, and not allowing the left to divide us across color lines, race, religion, color, or creed. Bunch of crap. We are all in this together. And let's fight together to save our country. And let's fight for President Trump to be the 47th president of this great country.
We are unsafe. So you feel safe around the MAGA crew? Watch The Six. Please watch The Six, that documentary. And particularly, if you don't focus on anything else, which if you watch it, you have to focus on everything. You really do. But if you don't, focus on it. Mel B. Cole, the photographer, the Black photographer. Just check out his story, his part of the story. The idea that you don't feel safe. And the idea of the border. Since when Black folks care about folks coming in the border? Since when that's a threat to Black folks? First of all, where'd you come from? A ship. They all come from ships. The Irish, the Italians, they all came off of ships. Only we came in shackles and chains. And many of us died crossing. And some even committed suicide because they didn't want to be slaves. Understandably so. But our country, dude said, take back our country. Who wrote that talking point and put blackface on that guy? It's unbelievable that these folks are so brainwashed. And then again, cohesiveness. The father of this Wisconsin high school student stormed the stage during his daughter's graduation, targeted the Black school superintendent, didn't want his daughter shaking this Black man's hand. He's the superintendent. And there you go.
Excuse me. Where's Brendan?
Man, you better get up
Where's
off me,
Brendan?
man.
Where's Brendan?
Get away from me, bro.
No, hey.
Hey, no, hey,
Go.
hey, you need to get, hey,
Walk
hey,
away.
hey,
Walk
hey,
away.
you gotta, I will get up right now.
I don't want to.
I don't care. Get up.
Now, some say
That way,
that
Michael. No.
some say, oh, he was upset because his daughter was bullied and the superintendent did nothing. Um, Even if that is true, there were other members of the school hierarchy there. He didn't have a problem with them. They were all white. He didn't have a problem with them shaking his daughter's hand. But he assaulted the black man to prevent him from shaking the daughter's hand. You see, hate and racism is such a sickness, and it blinds you to everything else because she's graduating, she's gone. And you see her, he ruined her graduation at the very least. He ruined her graduation. He stole her moment, a moment she will never be able to get back. Never, and he's noticed she had to move, she flipped her own thing there and like, and walk, they had to walk off the stage. And the last I heard, the guy was charged with some misdemeanor crime or whatever. But this is why that situation on Capitol Hill yesterday was so disgusting. Because you got all of this going on, constantly going on too. Now we were talking about this, and tell me what you guys think. Greer and I had lunch with a White House official. In fact, I got to brag about that because we was in the exclusive house, White House. What is it? The Navy mess hall. And this is where the president eats. This is where governors, everybody eats. And so it was really cool to be there. But we were talking about, Greer and I was talking about how folks watch. You go to the clinics, you go to barbershops, and they got Fox News on. And she was saying, Greer was saying, she brought the point out, and I thought about it, and she's 100% right. Perhaps that's why so many black folks are uninformed, because they don't really watch television, or watch the news, I should say. But when you go to a barbershop, when you go to the doctor's office, you go to lab work or whatever, they all have Fox News on. You go to the airport, Fox News. And so Fox News, of course, is not telling them. They didn't tell them about the Capitol, the insurrection. They didn't really give them the details. They didn't give them, and this idea of Trump being this hero is boosted on Fox News, had been boosted on Fox News forever. And so this is the information that they have. They think that what they're seeing, as Greer said, are mainstream black ideas. So is that, I subscribe to that. That theory. I think it's more than a theory. I think it's a fact. But you guys, you tell me, is that part of the problem? Is that a big part of the problem? Because as Greer says, perhaps they are considering, because they all are watching it. That's what they're considering. It's a really interesting thing that when you go into these places, Michelle Madison said word, that's what you see. So once again, those folks, they plan. They're strategic. And then you have a 50 Cent says his experience on Capitol Hill was great. He says, I went to talk to them about economic opportunities for everybody. Now, going into it, now that's what he said coming out. Going into it, it was hyped as 50 Cent is going in to talk about the wealth gap and creating more opportunities economically for Black folks. But the narrative that he spun coming out of there, and this is his direct quote, I went to talk to them about economic opportunities for everybody. And it's really exciting, he says. He says this. Now, think about it. He sought out all these conservative folks, these MAGA folks. And he said, the response I got makes me feel like that there's bright days ahead of us. How in the world? And you see that note right there about Jim Crow, the statute that made it unlawful for any white person to intermarry with any Negro person. The penalty performing such a ceremony was punishable by a fine of $1,000. And Power 96 says, any establishment that has Fox News on their TV, when I walk in, I will turn around and walk out. And Mike V says, Curtis, all lives matter, Jackson. He also took a dig. He took some pictures with Nancy Pelosi, and he kind of took a dig at her. But everybody else, all of the Steve Scalise, Mike Johnson, Lauren Boebert, the guy praised. And so it shows you the mindset there. It shows you the mindset. You watch this stuff, folks. I'm telling you, it's this is what they have. This is what the so-called conservatives and the MAGA folks count on. They count on a 50 Cent to buck dance. They count on a Ice Cube to dance a jig. There's a huge superstar that I'm not going to name. And those who know me personally probably know who I'm talking about. But one of the things that stood out for me of all the great accomplishments of this individual, he got in some financial difficulties. And this prominent white Florida businessman, not Donald Trump, prominent white man, would fly this individual out to Florida anytime, like there was a birthday party for one of his kids, or maybe his wife or niece or nephew, or whatever. Make sure he would demand that this extremely famous individual would come out. And in front of all these people, he'd tell that individual, Black individual, okay, go dance for us. I'm not making this up. Go dance for us. Get up and dance for him. The demeaning thing, you would be shocked if you knew all the other details of that. Shocked, hurt, disappointed. Because it wasn't me, but I still felt a tinge of disappointment and hurt for that individual. And I just couldn't believe that you have lost yourself so much that you are buck dancing, literally. Like Mike Reese's Killer Mike is buck dancing for Brian Kemp in Georgia. Yeah, and Power 96, I would hope that other Black journalists would set the record straight with 50 Cent as well. As Greer said, you'd have to have, you can't really, they don't want you coming at them, but you should be able to have a conversation with them and lay out the facts and let them explain their actions. Because again, listen, your politics are your politics. That's not what I'm saying here. That if he wants to support whomever, listen, that's him. But to say that Black folks relate and favor this guy, favor Trump because of his convictions, because he's been in, not his moral convictions, his criminal convictions, his felony convictions. It's very insightful, and not insightful like you thinking with insight, insightful that it incites you to want to choke somebody. But like, what are you doing here? And how short are memories? How short are memories? Because again, folks, Jim Crow was less than a century ago. I mean, it was 6 decades ago, 7 maybe. It was yesterday, pretty much. Mike Reese says, "Mama said knock you out." Yeah, and again, that's of course my man LL song, "Mama said knock you out," but no disrespect, but none of them would surprise me at this point. No, not a single one of these hip hop guys would surprise me at this point. They have forgotten the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or the peanut butter sandwich, because they probably couldn't afford jelly. Like what Chris Tucker said in Friday, ham, no burger. Yeah, I mean, cereal. They certainly experienced the water on the cereal, and they've forgotten that. They have totally forgotten that, and that's where it's at. That's where it's at. But it's so infuriating when you see this stuff. And so the cohesiveness of Let It Be Known today is something to think about. You got ignorance on top of ignorance, from 50 Cent to the white guy who ruined his daughter's graduation because of racism. This law in Louisiana. Of course, then you got Byron Donald Duck. And touting Jim Crow. Touting Jim Crow. And then of course, Wendell Pierce, the amazing actor, very popular actor, very wealthy actor, being shut out of a Harlem apartment because of racism. The guy could probably buy the building. And you won't let him rent there simply because he's Black. One of the things he said, one of the excuses the building owner gave him, he said, was because he didn't have steady employment. He wasn't working a 9 to 5. Imagine that. Now, listen, the guy has homes, and he showed that, and that's what he said. He says, I own homes down south, out west. Yeah, that guy looked, that white guy looked, you one of them. and of course, yes, Mike V, that the painfully ignorant man in blackface who calls himself, who is the lieutenant governor, I should say, of North Carolina, Mark Robinson. It's too much of that. It's so much of that. There's a great picture before we close, and I don't know if Greer has it or not, of mocking 50 Cent and Byron Donalds. They were like from the Django Unchained when the master died, and how much despair it caused them. He was hugging and holding the master. Just so bad, so bad, so bad, folks. It's been that type of week, right? It's been that type of week. I've been out of pocket all week. It be making me mad. There it is, right there. There it is. And Power 96 says of Wendell Pierce, not only does he own homes, he has bought and rebuilt several homes in New Orleans. Yeah, he's done huge work in New Orleans. But yeah, it's been that type of week. Look, supposed to let these things roll off, right? Especially me. But nonetheless, I gotta bring you the information, and I can't just. I gotta be a straight no chaser, because this is, again, the history of the Black press. 197 years has been to plead our own cause, because for too long others have spoken for us. Thanks for joining Let It Be Known. Like, subscribe to our Let It Be Known YouTube page, and we will be back tomorrow with some more straight no chaser. We'll see you then.